Hi, this is John Rowell for the Rowell Report. Welcome to my channel. Here is a brief frontline update regarding the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Today is Wednesday, September 3rd, 2025. So we're taking a look at the deep state map, which shows the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Let's see if we can get here. This area, the Kharkiv and the Sumy areas, basically we don't see any changes, nothing significant. But once we get down to the uh, Kupiansk area, we start to see some drastic changes in the maps. So anyway, here is the most recent update of Deep State, and here is from yesterday. So yesterday, this blue area was the area that was considered by Deep State, which is a pro-Ukrainian mapping service, to be liberated. So this area was liberated northwest of Kupiansk. And so then if we go to today, so that area is no longer quote unquote liberated by the Ukrainians. So basically the Ukrainians lost that area, or it's not clear that they are still there. So, and if we go to another map, we can see even more changes. This is the military summary map. We can go and see what's going on in Kupiansk. So we can see that the Russian troops are basically into the city center. And so this is even a clearer sign. We had an update from the Russian Ministry of Defense that said that the Russians were actually all the way down here, uh, but and they were closing off this pocket. But anyway, we haven't received or seen any evidence that points in that direction. So it could be true. It's just hard to say whether that is the case or not. But anyway, the military summary map pulls information from both pro-Ukrainian, pro-Russian, and neutral mappers. And so, but we can see that there's definite progress here in the Kupiansk area for the Russian forces. And I guess the real question is here, why did the Ukrainian military abandon Kupiansk? The first thing is that Kupiansk is not a large city and it doesn't have a lot of high rises. So there isn't a lot of defensive lines, and the area which could be considered defensive lines is the area where the Russians were taking control. So they had to abandon those areas, and they really didn't have another area where they could defend. And if the Ukrainians were there in northwest of Kupiansk and they were pushed back, it means that the Russians reinforced their. So we can see, if we go back, we can see where the Ukrainians were. So the Russians would have reinforced their presence. And so now we can expect, if the Russians now are in the center of Kupiansk and they are here, we can expect that they will continue south and continue south. And if they do that, then the Ukrainian soldiers who are in this area will start to see themselves in a cauldron. So they're going to have to depart towards defensible positions. So anyway, we don't know what kind of orders are coming to the soldiers from the general staff of the Ukrainian army. It could be that they're told to fight to the last man. We don't know, but if there may be good defensible positions in this area, but if the Russians are going south, then that means that let's take another look at it. And if the Russians are going south, so that means that if the Ukrainians are here, and here's some Here's a reservoir, so this is a difficult area to cross. So they really only have, this area here where they can escape. So if the Russians continue to go south, we may see that the Ukrainians make a push to get out of that pocket. Or we could see Ukrainians try to enter into this to send more troops to reinforce the presence of the Ukrainians in this pocket. So, but anyway, the fact that the Russians entered into Kupiansk and pushed the Ukrainians out of this area means that they are carrying out kind of a hammer blow for this pocket. So we may see the Ukrainians slowly start to retreat and to get out of that pocket. So in the Barova area, we don't see much action, but I would assume that if you have a military strategy, you would focus first on the area where you have momentum. So the Russians have momentum in the Kupiansk area. So once the Russians knock off this area, then they will start to push south. I mean, they're already here. They already have the resources. They already have soldiers here. So then they can start to move them um, south and to start cutting off this Barova pocket. So anyway, that's why we're probably not seeing too much movement here in Barova. And so, but the Russians aren't ceding territory either. So anyway, let's go further south. We have the Liman and Sloviansk area. So again here, the deep state map seems to be a few days behind. And so if we go over here to the, if we go further down, we can see that the Russian forces are pushing close to Shandri Kolove, and here in Shandri Kolove, the deep state map still hasn't registered the advances of the Russian forces. So this could be due to some communication snafus between the deep state mappers and the general office of the Ukrainian military. But anyway, that is odd, where that there's quite a difference between the two maps. Now, if we go further in the Liman area, okay, let's take a look at the Liman area. So here we have Yampol, okay, Liman. Okay, we have the Russian forces west of Kolodyaji and in Zarichne. So let's go over here. Zarichne, so yes, the deep state map has them in Zarichne and Kolodyaji. So that seems to be lining up. Now in the Siversk area, if we go further down, we see that the military summary map has the Russian forces approaching the urban area of Siversk and also advancing in the south. And here we don't have the same advances. So here that should be like this, and should be something like this, and should be something like this. So here again we have a river, and this could be either a defensible position or also could trap the Ukrainian troops in this area. So it's hard to see what the strategy of Russia is, but it looks like they're focusing on this southern area. Oops. So it could be that they're focusing on the southern area, and then they will move north. And once they do that, then they can work their way up and close off this area. So, 1, 2, 3. So basically, they're going to move up north, first taking this southern area, and then this middle area, and then this upper area. Really, what is the difficulty here for the Russians is that there is a force that is very hard to progress. So you can see this whole area, this forest. This has been an area where the Russians have fought over for several years. So the best way to take this area is to trap it in a cauldron. So you can see how the Russian forces are moving north, and then they can trap this area in a cauldron, and then the Ukrainian forces will be trapped and they won't be able to escape to defensible positions. So that seems to be what is going to happen there. And if we move further south, we have quite a bit of difference here between the deep state map and the military summary map, especially as regarding the Chasiv Yar area. So if we look at Chasiv Yar, one of the subdivisions, or one of the one part of the urban area of Chasiv Yar is this Shevchenko, and so the deep state map still has this area, Shevchenko, as part of under total Ukrainian control. And why is this important? Because the Ukrainians do not want to admit that they lost the city of Chasiv Yar. So here is Chasiv Yar. Chasiv Yar has been an area where they have been defending practically to the last man. So they don't want to admit that they lost that area. Now, going back to the military summary map, we can see that according to this map, the Russians have completely conquered Chasiv Yar, so there's nothing left. So Chasiv Yar fell, and so um, let's go back to the deep state map and we'll continue south. Okay, so we see also a big difference here in the Kupiansk area and this large reservoir. So according to the deep state map, we see that the um, Ukrainians still have control over Kupiansk and a good part of this area, which is surrounded on three sides. But if we go to the military summary channel map, okay, let's go find the. Okay, I think I'm in the wrong area. So nope. So anyway, we're back here with the Kleban-Bik area. So according to the military summary map, the Russians have conquered that Kleban-Bik area, practically have closed off um, this this area south of the reservoir and the cauldron. And so according to the Russians, they have this area here. And so the Ukrainians who are in this area have been trying to escape this area in boats, but the boats have been hit with the drones. So it's made it difficult for the Ukrainians to get out. So anyway, the Ukrainians there are either waiting for reinforcements to come to try to open a hole for them to escape, either uh, either side of this reservoir. Um, but in any case, it looks like if there's any Ukrainians still in this area, that they're practically going to be surrounded and many of them will be captured. So, anyway, that is the news there about the area south of Konstantinovka. So little by little, the Russians are starting to move northwards. Once they get this area here, then they will continue to move forward, and with the idea of covering of taking this whole area. So anyway, that is what's happening there south of Konstantinovka. And so if we go over here um, to the area of the Russian advance, some time ago, we have the deep state map, basically saying that this area which the Ukrainians retook from the Russians, and then they put this thumbs up. You see the thumb, the hand, the sleeve, the arm. This is obviously the hand punched through and then give the thumbs up. So but we do see here in the deep state map that there was an advance of the Russian forces. So anyway, the reason why the color changed from blue to green in the deep state map was that the blue color was that this area was retaken uh, within the last 2 weeks. So, according to the deep state map, this area now is solidly Ukrainian. But if we go over to the military summary map and take a look, we see that the Russians have not lost that area. And in fact, they're up to the city of Vesele. Vesele. So, up here. So, anyway, we can see, basically, we can say that this area here, oh, this is not a good image for that. Let me just draw a line. So I'm going to draw a line. So basically, this area is under total Russian control. So the deep state map is in complete, is affirming a position that the military summary map states is incorrect. So this is the difference between the mappers. Now, if we go into the Pokrovsk area, apparently the Russian forces carried out a pipeline operation which took the troops from unknown position south into the center of Pokrovsk. So there was a video that was put out that supposedly showed Russian soldiers in a pipe which was not very wide, pushing military equipment, and then finding a hole further up and coming out somewhere in the middle of Pokrovsk. But anyway, that video has not been verified. But what we have here in the military summary map is that the area almost to the center looks like a gray area, and the Russians are right up to the Troyanda area. So if we go here, this Troyanda, so let's draw. So this basically is all Russian controlled according to the military summary map. The deep state map, it has no reference to that at all. And there's another large gray area which is something like this. So anyway, this is quite a difference between the two maps. And again, I don't know why there is the difference. But if we go to yesterday to today, we see actually no change in any of the maps. In fact, the area that the Ukrainians apparently took in Novoekonomichne no longer appears in blue. So how far do we have to go back to find that? So we have to go back a while to find the Ukrainian the advances. Uh, Apparently, the Ukrainians had entered Novoekonomichne, but it looks like the area now is back into an area that looks like it's possibly controlled by the Russians. So this pocket here, this Pokrovsk Mirnograd pocket, is slowly starting to collapse. And if we zoom out a little bit, um, if we take into account what's on the military summary map, we can say that this area is Russian and this area here is Russian. So all the Russians need to do is now move this way. If they take Dobropilia, this area is going to collapse completely, as this is uh, the area where the Ukrainians are bringing in supplies, and then they only have this area here, excuse me, which is under complete. Oh, sorry about that. Let's try to put that in the right color. So here, so the Ukrainians would try to resupply, but it looks like the Russians could put and a drone on anyone coming through there. So it looks like the Russians are going to take this pocket. The defenses in Pokrovsk are starting to collapse, and so the what happened in the Pokrovsk area is that the Russians advanced to this area quite a few months ago, but they weren't able to enter in the Pokrovsk area. The Ukrainians brought in reinforcements, and the Russians have been hitting them with artillery. And as you might remember from one of my other videos, it looks like the advantage of the Russians to the Ukrainians is 10-1 as far as artillery goes. So part of not taking the area is for the Ukrainians to continue to flood the area with reinforcements and for the Russians to hit them with artillery. So anyway, regarding the other areas, there is some movement here in the Novosilivka areas. So you can see yesterday, today. So again, zoom in a little bit more. Yesterday, today. So according to the deep state map, the Russians are advancing here and the Ukrainians are advancing here. So the Ukrainians are continuing to try to cut off this area up here, and so it looks like the Russians have stabilized that a bit, and but there's going to be intense fighting on both sides, and we may not know the true positions as both of the militaries may be slow to put out accurate, up-to-date information to avoid giving away their positions and strategy. So anyway, the other areas down south are pretty much, if we take a box here, this whole area, there's very little updates in this area, and it may not be that nothing's going on. It could be that both the militaries are slow to put out information again to avoid putting out their troop locations and reveal their strategies. So anyway, that is my report today on the front line, and I wish everyone a beautiful day. Thank you for joining me. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll look forward to you in future videos. Bye-bye.